The airport buzzed with its usual chaos, rolling suitcases, echoing announcements, and the smell of roasted coffee drifting through the air. Among the crowd stood Evelyn Grant, a woman in her late 50s, elegantly dressed in white slacks and pearls. Her sharp blue eyes scanned the line at the boarding gate with mild irritation. She had spent her entire life believing that class and color still defined people, and she carried that attitude wherever she went. Today, Evelyn was flying first class to New York on a high-end airline. She had been invited to a charity gala where she was set to receive an Outstanding Citizen award, irony that life itself would soon expose. As she entered the aircraft, Evelyn gave a polite nod to the flight attendant and walked down the aisle, her heels clicking. But as she reached her seat, 1A, by the window, she noticed something that made her stiffen. In 1B, the aisle seat right next to hers, sat a tall, muscular black man, wearing a hoodie, wireless headphones, and ripped jeans. His face was calm, his posture relaxed, and he smiled politely when she approached. "Excuse me," Evelyn said curtly, clutching her designer purse. "I think you're in the wrong section." He removed one side of his headphone. "Sorry. This is first class," she said, lowering her voice but not her tone. "Economy's that way." She gestured backward with her chin. The man chuckled softly, then held up his ticket. "Seat 1B. Right here." Evelyn's lips tightened. She looked toward the flight attendant, who confirmed with a smile, "Yes ma'am, he's in the correct seat." "Oh," Evelyn said, forcing a brittle smile. "How nice." She sat down stiffly, clutching her purse on her lap, her perfume strong enough to fill the row. She avoided eye contact, but couldn't help glancing sideways at the man as he scrolled through his phone. When the plane took off, Evelyn began feeling irritated. The man stretched his legs slightly, brushing her seat once. She frowned. Then, when turbulence hit, her water spilled a little. She muttered under her breath, something he clearly heard but chose to ignore. A few hours into the flight, Evelyn started to doze off. Every time she moved, her seat bumped lightly against his knees. Annoyed, she turned and said, "Could you not push against my seat, please?" He removed his headphones again. "I'm not pushing, ma'am. There's just not much legroom." "Oh, right. Maybe you should have chosen a seat more suited to your frame." He smiled, polite but cold. "I paid for this one." Evelyn didn't respond, but inside, her prejudice boiled. First class should feel first class, she thought. Not like a basketball locker room. Then, as the plane began to descend, Evelyn felt another nudge, just a soft bump from behind. She frowned and turned, realizing the passenger behind was trying to adjust his tray. But instead of addressing him, she whipped around and kicked the seat in front of her, muttering under her breath again. Her heel struck the man's seat by accident. Once, twice, 3 times. The man turned slightly, now clearly noticing. "Everything all right back there?" "Oh, you're fine," she said sharply. "Maybe if you didn't take up so much space, people wouldn't feel cramped." He just nodded and went back to his screen. But the flight attendant saw her attitude. "Ma'am, please don't kick the seat." "I wasn't kicking," she snapped. "These seats are too small for normal people." The attendant nodded politely and walked away, but the man's calm demeanor unsettled her. Evelyn couldn't stand it. Why wasn't he angry? Why didn't he snap back? Because, she thought, he knows his place. She didn't realize, not yet, that the man beside her wasn't just anyone. He was someone whose name would humble her to the core. As the plane cruised steadily over the clouds, Evelyn's irritation only deepened. The man beside her had ordered a simple meal, grilled chicken with vegetables, and now he was quietly reading something on his tablet. Every time the light from the screen flickered, it reflected against a diamond watch on his wrist. She noticed it, and frowned. It was a Patek Philippe Nautilus, easily worth over $100,000. Probably fake, she thought, shifting uncomfortably. Meanwhile, the flight attendant came back with a bottle of champagne. "Mr. Blake, this is from the captain. He says it's an honor having you on board." The man smiled. "That's kind of him. Please tell him thank you." Evelyn blinked. "Mr. Blake." The name sounded vaguely familiar. As the attendant poured the drink, she couldn't help but ask, "You know the captain?" He turned to her, amused. "We've met a few times, yes." I've flown with this airline before. Oh, she said, pretending to sound polite. You travel often. Almost every week, he said casually. Between LA, London, and New York. I have a few businesses to run. Ah, business, she said, smirking slightly. Sportswear, I presume. He chuckled. Not exactly. Mostly investment firms and a tech foundation that helps underprivileged kids learn coding. That last part hit her differently. Really? She asked, caught off guard. Yes. It's called the Blake Foundation. We've opened over 30 centers in Africa and the US. Her breath caught. Blake Foundation. She'd heard that name on the news, featured in Forbes, praised for philanthropy and innovation. She suddenly looked closer at him. Could it be? Wait, she said slowly, are you, Jordan Blake? He smiled modestly. Yes, ma'am. Jordan Blake. Her jaw nearly dropped. Jordan Blake. The billionaire tech CEO who'd grown up homeless in Detroit and built one of the world's most successful companies, Blake Technologies. He was also known for donating millions to racial equality programs and education. Evelyn's mouth went dry. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize. I didn't recognize you without a suit. He finished gently, smiling again. Don't worry about it. I travel light when I'm off duty. Her cheeks flushed crimson. Every word she had said before now replayed in her mind. Every insult, every assumption. She wanted to disappear. I'm so sorry, she stammered. I didn't mean to. He waved a hand lightly. No harm done. But his eyes, kind as they seemed, carried something deeper. A quiet disappointment that said I've seen this too many times. Evelyn tried to recover. I really admire your work, Mr. Blake. The schools, the foundations, it's wonderful what you've done. Thank you, he said. But what really matters is how we treat people when we don't know who they are. That line struck her like lightning. She looked down at her trembling hands. Her pearls suddenly felt like shackles. The flight continued in silence. Evelyn replayed everything in her mind. The prejudice, the arrogance, the quiet dignity he'd shown in return. She realized, painfully, that the man she had judged based on color and clothing had achieved more for humanity than she ever had in her privileged life. As the plane began its descent into New York, Evelyn's heart raced faster than the turbines outside. She wanted to say something, to apologize again, to explain herself, but words failed her. When the plane touched down, applause erupted as usual. Passengers began gathering their things. Evelyn noticed that Jordan Blake stood patiently, letting others go before him, greeting each attendant with a humble smile. He turned to her one last time. It was nice sitting beside you, ma'am. She forced a nervous smile. Mr. Blake, I owe you an apology. For my behavior earlier. I wasn't fair to you. He nodded slowly. I appreciate that. I've always believed I wasn't like those people who judge others, she continued softly, voice trembling. But I guess I was wrong. He looked at her for a moment. Not angry, not condescending, just understanding. The hardest truth, he said, is realizing how small our hearts can become when we stop seeing people for who they are. Her eyes filled with tears. You're right. Everyone learns eventually, he said kindly. The question is whether we change after learning. As they walked out of the gate, photographers suddenly appeared, flashing cameras and calling his name. Mr. Blake, over here. Jordan, can we get a quote about your new charity event? Evelyn froze. He was surrounded instantly by staff and press. Even the airline crew stood respectfully as he passed. But then something unexpected happened. He turned back, toward her. Ms. Grant, he called out. Her eyes widened. Yes. Would you like to attend our New York Foundation gala tonight? I think you might find it enlightening. She blinked in disbelief. You're inviting me, he smiled. Consider it a second flight. One that might land somewhere better. She nodded, almost speechless. I'd be honored. That night, Evelyn Grant stood in a grand ballroom filled with people of every race, age, and story. She listened as Jordan Blake took the stage, speaking about equality, forgiveness, and humanity. He didn't mention her name. But when he said, sometimes, the person who needs compassion the most is the one who's forgotten how to give it, she felt tears streaming down her face. After the event, she approached him quietly. Mr. Blake, thank you. Not just for forgiving me, but for showing me something I never saw before." He smiled. "That's all I ever try to do." As Evelyn left that night, she looked up at the city lights, humbled, quiet, changed. For the first time in years, she didn't see color. She saw people, and in that moment, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest journey of your life doesn't happen at 30,000 feet in the sky, it happens in your heart.